Once, there was a woman so rich that she thought nothing could ever touch her. She had gold, she had servants, she had power. But one day she found herself lying in the dust, begging for just a single cup of water. How could a woman with everything fall so low? And what secret mistake brought her to this end? Stay with me, because this story will shock you and teach you a truth you will never forget. Chapter 1. A Palace Without Thirst. Maria was the richest woman in the city. She lived in a giant palace with golden doors, shining floors, and tall windows that opened to a garden full of roses. Servants walked behind her day and night, ready to bring her food, clothes, or anything she wanted. If she raised her hand, 10 people came running. If she whispered, the whole house became silent. Maria never cooked, never cleaned, never even touched a glass of water herself. Everything was served to her in silver plates and crystal cups. She thought this was normal. She believed the world was made for her comfort. Her mornings began with music, soft and sweet. Her servants brought her milk mixed with honey, fresh fruits, and bread made only for her. She never knew the pain of waking up hungry. She never knew the feeling of an empty stomach. To her, bread was just bread. It had no story, no value. She ate, but she never thanked anyone for the food. Water came to her in golden jugs, cold and clean. She drank without thinking, without knowing that in many places people walked miles to find one drop. For Maria, thirst was just a word she had read in books. The palace was so big that she often laughed at how small people outside looked. From her balcony, she saw men carrying heavy loads and women working in the fields. She saw poor children chasing each other barefoot on the road. Sometimes the cries of beggars reached her gates, but she closed her ears. "Why should I care?" she told herself. "Their world is not my world." She thought riches could protect her from every problem. Pride sat in her heart like a stone, heavy and cold. But the palace, though rich, had a strange emptiness. Its walls shone with gold, but there was no laughter, no true joy. People feared Maria more than they loved her. Servants bowed, but none smiled at her. She mistook fear for respect. Every corner of her palace looked perfect, yet something inside her soul was thirsty. Thirsty not for water, but for meaning. She did not see it, she did not feel it, but her life was dry like a desert hiding under silk carpets. Maria thought her wealth would last forever. She thought her palace would always shine, her table would always be full, and her cup would never be empty. She did not know that one small journey, one sudden twist of fate, would break her pride. She did not know that a day was coming when all her gold, all her jewels, all her servants would mean nothing. A day when her throat would burn, her lips would dry, and she would whisper the one word she never thought she would say. "Please, water." Chapter 2. The Road of Pride. The rich woman decided to leave her palace one summer. She wanted people in faraway towns to see her beauty and her wealth. She wore a red silk dress that shone in the sunlight. Around her neck were gold chains, and her fingers sparkled with diamonds. Behind her, 10 servants walked, each carrying heavy bags of jewels, clothes, and gifts. She sat in a golden carriage pulled by white horses. Everyone on the road stopped to stare at her. Farmers bowed, children pointed, and poor women whispered. She smiled proudly, thinking, "No one is greater than me." As the carriage rolled through villages, she showed off her power. She threw small coins to children, not out of kindness, but to see them fight over them. When villagers came close, asking for help, she lifted her hand and turned her face away. She believed her beauty and gold made her untouchable. Her servants praised her, saying, "My lady, the world belongs to you." She believed every word. In her heart, she thought she was like a queen chosen by the sky. Pride filled her more than the air she breathed. But the long journey began to test her. The sun burned hotter with each passing day. The road was dusty, and the wheels of the carriage shook over stones. Still, she refused to step down or rest. She wanted everyone to see her carriage shining on the road. Her servants grew tired, their clothes dark with sweat, but she ordered them to keep walking. "Carry my things faster," she shouted. "I do not like to wait." She did not care for their pain. She thought only of her pride and the eyes watching her. As they moved farther from the city, the villages became smaller, the people poorer, and the roads harder. Yet, she did not notice. She was too busy adjusting her jewels and fixing her hair in a silver mirror. When one servant stumbled and nearly dropped her bag, she slapped him across the face. "Do not shame me in front of others!" she screamed. Her voice was sharp, but her heart felt nothing. The poor man lowered his head and kept walking, while she laughed proudly at her reflection. She believed her journey was a parade of greatness, but she did not know the truth waiting ahead. Beyond the next hill, her pride would meet its test. For soon, the road would lead to a place where gold meant nothing, where beauty could not help, and where her thirst would grow stronger than her pride. And in that place, for the first time in her life, she would learn the meaning of need. Chapter 3. The Empty Well. The sun grew hotter as the woman's golden carriage rolled forward. Her lips were dry and her throat began to burn. She raised her jeweled cup, but it was empty. She called for water, and her servants hurried to the bags. But the jars were dry too. They had traveled far, and no one had filled them again. She frowned angrily. "Find me water!" she shouted. The servants ran ahead, searching the fields and houses. But there was nothing, only dust, stones, and the sound of dry wind. Finally, they saw an old well at the edge of a deserted village. The woman stepped down from her carriage, her silk dress brushing the earth. She walked with pride toward the well, expecting cool, fresh water. But when the servants lowered the rope, it touched only dry sand. The bucket came up empty, and the echo inside the well was hollow. The woman's eyes widened. "This cannot be!" she cried. She looked around, hoping someone would appear with a jug of water. But the village was silent, the doors broken, the ground cracked. Her throat tightened, and her pride began to shake. She turned to her servants. "Go farther, search every house, every field, bring me water." They obeyed, but they too were weak with thirst. Hours passed, and none returned with even a drop. The rich woman sat on the ground near the dry well. The sun burned her skin, and the jewels on her neck felt heavy like chains. She pressed her lips together, trying to hide her fear, but inside her heart she felt something new: helplessness. One poor farmer's wife appeared at the edge of the village. She carried a clay pot with a little water inside. The woman ran to her and held out her jeweled hands. "Give it to me," she demanded. The farmer's wife shook her head gently. "This water is for my children. We have only this much left." The rich woman pulled off a gold ring and held it out. "Take this. Just give me the pot." But the wife stepped back. "Gold cannot fill an empty stomach. Diamonds cannot quench thirst. My children need this water more than your pride." Then she turned and walked away. The rich woman fell to her knees, her silk dress covered in dust. For the first time, her gold and jewels were useless. She realized the truth that struck her heart like a knife. Her wealth had no power here. In front of the empty well, her pride began to break. And in that silence, under the burning sun, she felt the taste of fear. For the first time in her life, she whispered to herself, "What if I cannot survive?" Chapter 4. A cup in the dust. The woman's lips were dry. Her throat burned like fire. She held her jewels in her hands, gold shining in the sun. She went to the first man she saw and said, "Please, give me water. I will give you this gold chain." The man looked at her and shook his head. "Gold cannot quench thirst," he said and walked away. She stood there, shocked. For the first time in her life, her treasure was useless. She had always believed gold could buy anything, but here in the dust, even gold was weaker than a drop of water. She walked to a group of women who carried clay pots on their heads. "Please," she begged, "I will give you diamonds, I will give you pearls, just give me one sip." The women looked at her rich clothes, her heavy jewels, and laughed bitterly. "Your jewels cannot fill our pots," one of them said. "Keep them. We have no water to spare for your pride." Their words stung her heart like sharp knives. She lowered her head, feeling smaller than she had ever felt before. Her pride was breaking, but her thirst was growing stronger. The sun climbed higher. Her feet sank in the hot dust as she stumbled forward. She tried again with an old farmer who carried a bucket. "Please, sir, I beg you, just one mouthful of water," she whispered. The farmer looked at her with sad eyes. "I have only enough for my family," he said. "Your jewels mean nothing to me." "You should have thought about the poor before." He turned and left her standing alone. Tears filled her eyes. She had never been refused anything in her life, but today she was refused over and over again. Her hands trembled. Her golden bangles slipped down her wrists into the dirt. She no longer cared. She fell to her knees, the dust sticking to her skin, her face wet with sweat and tears. She raised her hands and cried out, "Is there no one who will give me even a drop of water? Must I die here with all this gold?" Her voice echoed in the empty street, but no one came. People looked at her but turned away. They were tired of her proud face and rich clothes. They wanted her to feel what they had always felt, helplessness. At last, she sat in the dust, broken. The gold that once gave her pride now felt like chains pulling her down. Her lips were cracked, her voice weak. She whispered to herself, "So this is the price of pride. This is the truth of life. All my jewels cannot buy one cup of water." She closed her eyes and thought of her palace, her soft bed, her fountains, all gone, only thirst remained. And in that thirst, she began to see her life with new eyes. She began to understand a lesson that no palace had ever taught her before. Chapter 5. The Stranger's Gift. The rich woman sat on the ground, her body weak, her lips dry, her eyes full of fear. She had asked so many people for water, but no one listened. They only turned their faces away. Some even laughed at her. She felt smaller than ever before. Her heavy jewelry no longer had meaning. Her gold bangles felt like chains. Her silk dress clung to her body like a burden. She whispered softly, "Just one drop. Please, just one drop of water." But the crowd passed by. Her voice was lost in the noise of the world. When she thought she could not go on, a small voice touched her ears. "Do you need water, lady?" The woman raised her head slowly. In front of her stood a poor child, barefoot, wearing torn clothes. His face was thin, his hands were dirty, but his eyes shone with kindness. In his tiny hands he held a small clay cup. The woman blinked, unable to believe. "Water?" she whispered. The boy nodded gently. "Yes, take it. You look very thirsty." Tears filled her eyes. This was no servant, no rich friend, no guard. This was a child from the dust of the road. His feet were cracked, his shirt had holes, but his heart was pure. With trembling hands, she took the cup and raised it to her lips. The first drop touched her tongue, and it felt like heaven. The taste of water was sweeter than all the sweets she had eaten in her palace. Her heart trembled with gratitude. She drank slowly, holding every drop as if it was treasure. The boy smiled. You should rest. You are not strong. The woman looked at him with tears rolling down her cheeks. Why? Why did you give me this? I have nothing to give you back. The boy shrugged. Because you needed it. And because I know how it feels to be thirsty. His words cut deep into her heart. She thought of all the times she ignored the poor in her city, all the times she shut her doors on beggars, all the times she wasted food while others had none. The cup was empty, but her heart was full. She held the boy's hand tightly, as if holding on to the last piece of hope in the world. You saved me, she whispered. More than you know. For the first time in her life, the rich woman felt what it meant to be weak, to depend on the kindness of someone with nothing. She had begged for water, and the one who answered her was not rich, not powerful, not mighty, only a poor child with a good heart. Chapter 6, The Taste of Humility. The woman held the cup of water in her hands and drank slowly. Never before had she tasted anything so sweet. It was just water, plain and clear. But to her, it felt like the richest drink in the world. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in her life, she felt thankful for something simple. All her gold, all her jewels, and all her servants could not give her this feeling. Only the kindness of a poor child had saved her. She looked at the boy, and tears filled her eyes. Why did you help me when I had nothing to give you in return? She asked. The boy smiled and said, Because water belongs to everyone. No one should suffer from thirst. His words struck her heart like lightning. She had spent her whole life thinking that wealth was power, but in that moment she saw the truth. Kindness was far greater than gold. When she finally returned to her palace, she was no longer the same woman. She no longer cared for diamonds or silk gowns. She ordered her servants to bring clean water to the poor villages nearby. She gave food to the hungry and built wells where people could drink freely. People who once feared her now began to love her. They saw her not as a proud woman, but as a kind leader. The woman herself felt lighter and freer than ever before. She realized that life was not about showing off wealth, but about sharing what you have. She remembered the boy's small hands holding the cup and knew she would never forget him. His gift had changed her forever. And so, the story of the rich woman who once begged for water became famous. People told it again and again, not to shame her, but to remind others of its lesson. Rich or poor, no one escapes thirst and no one escapes need. But kindness, even in a single drop of water, can heal, save, and change a heart forever. This was the story of the rich woman who begged for water. She learned that gold and jewels cannot save you, but kindness can. What do you think is more powerful, wealth or kindness? Tell us in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Glorious English. More emotional and simple English stories are waiting for you. See you in the next video.